Good evening. It's about time to get started with the service this evening. We have a few announcements before we get started. Travis Wingard's sister, Glenda McCurdy, was diagnosed with leukemia yesterday. She's in the OU Medical Center and is not doing well at all. Starts chemo on Thursday, and it says she'll be in the hospital for at least a month with limited visitors to the same two people for that entire time. So we need to keep Glenda and her family in our prayers. Ardith Sumter was admitted to Mercy today with fluid on her lungs, and Butch mentioned reduced heart capacity. I don't know if that's a condition she already had or if that's tied to this, but things are not going well for Ardith right now, so we need to remember her in our prayers as well. Shelley Metters fell and hit her eye earlier this month and is still having some issues from that, so we need to remember her as well. The baby shower for Kyler Windsor this Sunday at 3 at the Perfect Blend. I think that's on East Main, so remember that. The date for our morning worship to move to the junior high has been moved back a week. So it looks like the first Sunday that we will have at the junior high would be December 4th. Let's see. Tomorrow night, College Devo at the Grams. The youth will not have a Devo tomorrow night, but they will have a Devo and meal on Sunday night. The ladies' prayer group meets this Sunday at 4 o'clock. Yellow House hands out food Monday from 8 to 10. And apparently someone has left a cell phone in the ladies' restroom. So if you're missing your phone, that might be it. Let's have a quick prayer and then we'll get started. Father, we're thankful for the day. We're thankful for the opportunity to gather together and to fellowship and to sing praises, to hear a lesson from your word, to study with one another and to grow. We're thankful for all the ways in which you bless us. Thankful for Jesus as our Savior, and for the salvation that he brings to us. We ask that you'll be with Glenda McCurdy, with Shelley, with Ardith, and any others that we may not be aware of that are struggling right now. But we ask that you put your hand on them, that they will be healed and recover quickly. Guide us in all that we do. Forgive us when we fail you. It's in the name of Christ we pray. Amen.
The song before the lesson will be number 490, It Is Well With My Soul. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roar, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my Inspiration song will be number 909.
Well, good evening. As you may or may not be aware, I know I got a little too far up, but I couldn't stand up there tonight. Just a little more active than that. College groups have been studying Christian evidences in our Wednesday night class, so I wanted to give you guys just a little preview of what that means and kind of why that's important to us. If you've read the bulletin articles, we're aware that by the time kids are this age, and especially this age, they're falling away from the church. They're leaving, and there's some specific causes for that, and this is one of them. Being an educator, I'm well aware of what the state and the nation requires us to teach as far as a science class. I have to say my science class was a little bit different than that. Always big disclaimers there, but we teach information that's going to be tested later on. So there's a big difference in science when we talk about theory and we talk about law. And most of, if not all of what's taught as far as this goes is theory. That's not law. It's something that has been put out there, but it cannot be proven. It cannot be repeated over and over. So law and theory are a little bit different. The book that we happen to be basing this study off of is Convicted by Dr. Brad Harrub from Apologetics Press. Somebody we're familiar with. He's been here and done some workshops for us. And also, this was kind of put together by Jared Hyatt. He's, of course, the campus minister down at Southeastern. So based on those things, again, just want to run through this because I don't know if it's going to be 8 minutes long. It's probably going to be longer. But Christian evidences, what is that? It is simply the study of evidence that substantiate the three pillars of our Christian faith. There is a God, the existence of God, the inspiration of the Bible, and the deity of Christ. And truth is based on evidence presented to us. And there's evidence just everywhere around us. You just have to be willing to look for it. I know what Brian goes through. So, some scriptures, Romans 1:20. There's so much evidence for creation that we are without excuse seeing it. Acts 17:11. We're to search before believing. We're not to blindly accept what is taught to us. We're supposed to dig. We're supposed to study. We're supposed to look for things on our own. And that's just about everything. John 10:37. We don't believe without evidence. So God has given us sufficient evidence to be able to know these things. But again, it's up to you. Study, dig, search, and teach. I especially reach out to you parents. This is important. What they're getting, again, in a public education is theory, but it's taught as fact. It is hammered into your children, and they're expected to regurgitate that come exam time. When we get to the college level and they hit a university, unfortunately, there's a terrible lot of liberalism in universities, and your kids are bombarded, promise you, with theories other than what the Bible presents to us. So this is important for you to study, to teach at home. Make sure your kids know exactly what's going on. So what is the argument? What are we talking about? We're talking about creation, and creation against the other ideas taught. Evolution, Big Bang, naturalism, everything occurs naturally, and it's just constantly evolving to become what we know now. And we know that is not the truth. 3 answers to the cause of the universe. The universe is eternal. It has always been. It will always be. Nothing's changed. It just is as it is and as we've seen it. And that's the way it's always been. The universe is not eternal. It created itself. Again, this is that Big Bang theory that we have something created from nothing. There is nothing in science that you can create from nothing. That's not a concept. That's not a thing. But yet, it is blindly taught. And the third one is the universe is not eternal. It did not create itself out of nothing. It was created by something or someone superior to itself. And of course, this is where we're going to jump in with the existence of God and the idea of creation. So, what are the chances that we came about by accident? A quick lesson into probability. If you take, wherever I put it, a single dice, and you roll that dice, your chances of getting any of your chosen numbers is 1 out of 6. Pretty simplistic. If you were to roll that dice twice and get the same number, the chances of that happening are now 1 in 36. If you roll it again to get that third number that you picked, the chances are now 1 in 216. So every time you roll this, we're multiplying that by a factor of 6. And we're going somewhere with it, so bear with us. If you take this deck of cards and you shuffle it, your chances of drawing an ace of hearts is 1 in 52, right? Pretty simple and straightforward. If you put it back in there, reshuffle, the chances of drawing that again now become 1 in 2,704. If you do it again, it's 1 in 7,311,000 and change. So the probability, the odds of that happening perfectly just climb exponentially. If you were to take a single grain of sand off the surface of the earth and you were to encode that and then hide it somewhere on earth, the chances of somebody, I don't care if you're blindfolded or not, we taught it as blindfolded in the class, the chances of somebody going and being able to pick that one grain of sand off a beach, ocean, lake, wherever you happen to be, is 1 in 100 billion. I don't even know those numbers. It's unfathomable. But the chances of doing that are that great. So why do we study probability? Why do we talk about probability? And it really comes down to this anthropic principle. The philosophical consideration that observation of the universe must be compatible with the conscious and sapient life that observes it. Everybody knows what that says, right? Yeah, what is that? What does that mean? We got to start with anthropic. If you talk anthropic, we're really dealing with the root anthrop. Does anybody know what that one is? It's humans. It's humans. If you're an anthropologist, you study humans. You study the history of humans. So there are some anthropic constants, and what this says is conditions must be perfect to allow life, and that life must observe those things that allow it to live. I don't know if that's any clearer than their definition, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. When you talk about anthropic constants, we talk about oxygen. Does anybody happen to know, besides the college kids, what percentage of Earth's atmosphere is oxygen? What would you guess? Anyone? Did you say it, Melissa? 21%. 21% oxygen. Why is that a big deal? Well, what are some properties of oxygen? If you have too much oxygen, what can happen? You have spontaneous combustion. It's flammable. So at a percentage of 25%, we would have spontaneous ignition on the surface of the earth. Well, how good is that for human life or any life in general? It's not there. If you fall below 15%, guess what starts happening? You suffocate. Yet we fall at 21%, where it's perfect for, in the subject that we're looking at, human life. It is one of those constants that if that varies just a few percentage points, we're not able to live where we live. Anthropic constant number 2, we have an atmosphere. We have an atmosphere. And everybody's wondering where I'm carrying around this wonderful globe. How long have you seen one of those? Sadie ran up and said, "Why do you have a globe?" I'm glad you know what a globe is. Or I couldn't believe it. And this is not current. The countries on there are not as they were whenever this was made. But our Earth has an atmosphere. That atmosphere is perfectly designed for life on Earth. It allows enough, it is transparent enough to allow enough solar energy in that we stay warm, we stay at some constant temperatures. It's not too thin that we lose that out and that we freeze, that it becomes too cold. there's a perfect amount of CO2. A disturbance in that, we have a greenhouse effect, which you hear a lot about, more CO2 in our atmosphere, and that is one of those things we deal with. One of the things that makes Earth very special is the blue. Look at all the blue on this globe, on this planet. That allows for a water cycle, allows for rain, it allows for all of those things that allow us life. Anthropic constant number 3, if Jupiter was not positioned where it is in our solar system, Earth would be constantly bombarded by material from outer space. What does Jupiter do? Jupiter has enough gravitational pull that it gets rid of a lot of space trash that actually could impact Earth. I know you hear about those asteroids headed for Earth and all that kind of good stuff, but Jupiter provides kind of a safety barrier for us on that. Anthropic constant number 4, Earth's rotation. So we're talking about Earth rotating on its axis at every 24 hours, okay? So when you're facing the sun, what's happening to the surface of the Earth? It's warming. On the backside, it's cooling, and it's doing that perfectly to maintain constant temperatures where we don't have those extremes of heat and we don't have those extremes of cold. We talk about this wonderful little tilt. We talk about that. Why is the globe always sitting on an angle, a tilt? It does several things. It provides for seasons, and it allows kind of the same thing as rotation. If the Earth was straight up on its axis, what happens around the equator? It gets really warm. What happens on the caps, the polar caps? It gets really cold. You don't have any variation of that. We have a really hot band that is not going to be as suitable for life, and we have really cold temperatures that are not going to be suitable for life. Hugh Ross, and this is a debate. There are over 122 of these anthropic constants that have to exist in order for humans to live on this planet. 122 of those. Again, that's just a handful, just a smattering. So the chance of that, we come back to probability. The chance of all those coming together perfectly is somewhere around 10 to the 138th power. That's 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, 138 times. So we talk about that, finding that grain of sand, that 100 billion, and that's that number. That grain of sand, 10 to the 20th power. And you're going to do that another 100 times to find this number. The chances of all those things coming together perfectly to allow life on Earth, 10 to the 20th power. When we talk about just Earth, its placement in relation to the sun, if it were any closer, well, we'd get a lot warmer than we do now. If we were further away, we'd get a lot colder. At the equator, I know I'm flying through a bunch of information. At the equator, you're moving 1,000 miles an hour. Just sitting still on the equator, you're already moving at 1,000 miles an hour. Because the circumference of this thing is 24,000 miles, and you do that in 24 hours. This globe is moving around the sun at 70,000 miles per hour. And our solar system, our planet inside that solar system, let's say that again. Our solar system moving through the universe is happening at 600,000 miles an hour. Those are numbers that we really can't get a grasp of. So how do we call that an accident? That we have all of these things lined up to give us life, and it's completely accidental. It happened because we had an explosion. How do we get there? How do we believe that? How could you believe that? Or was this intelligent design? Was this our Creator, our God, that made all of these things possible, put all of these pieces together in this puzzle to give us life with a purpose? 1 Peter 3:15, be prepared to give a defense. It's kind of hard to do, to confront somebody with your belief system. It's not one of those emotions or feelings that we like to have, confrontation, for most people. But you're to be prepared in all things to give a defense in what you believe. 1 Thessalonians 5:21, test all things and hold fast to what is good. It's not a blind faith. We believe what we believe for a reason. We study, we learn, and we apply it, and we share that. It seems to me that it takes a lot more faith not to believe in God than to look at all the evidence that God gives us and not believe in Him. Yet, 20%, we're saying a 20% believe in a naturalistic belief system. 20% of humans are unwilling to believe that there is a design creator, and I'd say that's probably low. How hard is it for us to look at the evidence, believe what we see, and then share that with everybody else? I promise you, your children are getting taught something. Are you combating that? One of the major reasons they fall away, especially when they reach this college age, is they're being taught something contradictory to what they've learned here. And maybe you're not thinking about discussing those things at home. But if they're being offered what we would call evidence contradictory to their faith, are you defending your faith at home? Or you're giving your kids what they need to defend their faith? To go out in the world, be strong, and put their belief system out there, to be a little confrontational with those who don't believe? Because again, that's happening. It really is. It's not one of those devos that kind of call for a response tonight, but you need to be prepared. You need to get ready. You need to be aware of what's going on in the world. These theories are taught as fact. They really are. Again, it's important for you to dispute that, to refute that, and to teach the correct thing and come to God. There's just too many variables that are hard to imagine. If nobody's in control, how scary would that be? Traveling 600,000 miles an hour through the universe with no real plan, just an accident. Sounds like an accident waiting to happen. Again, a different kind of Devo. If there's anything that the church could help with tonight, we welcome you to come forward as we stand and sing.
There's a fountain free, 'tis for you and me. Let us haste always to its brink. 'Tis the fount of love from the source above, and He bids us all freely drink. Will you come to the fountain free? Will you come?
Heavenly Father, we are so very thankful to you, Father, that you did create us. Father, that you gave us life. You gave this earth, you created this earth and placed life on it. Father, we have failed you in many ways. And Father, you sent your Son anyway. And because we failed you. But you did it because you love us. And we are so very thankful to you for that. Father, I pray that you help us to show those that we come in contact with that love. And help us always to be loving in the things that we say and we do so we can be good examples. But Father, like Kyle was saying, help us to stand firm. It's in your Son's name that I pray. Amen.
Muted. All right, with our 31 minutes left, we're going we're going to get into Psalms. We got a real good study I had planned for tonight. I'll get to it if I get to it, and if I won't, you'll hear it next Wednesday. All righty. We're in Psalm 6. Verse 6. Psalm 6, verse 6. David said, I am weary with my moaning. Every night I flood the bed with tears. I drench my couch with my weeping. My eye wastes away because of grief. It grows weak because of all my foes. I have definitely not ever been that upset. Why is David upset? Why is he drenching his bed with tears? Because of the sin in his life. Absolutely. That would take a a lot of conviction, wouldn't it, to be that aware of your sin, and it caused so much emotion in your life. Roy Deaver said, sin should bring a great amount of grief and sorrow to the person whose conscience is rooted in God. Because sin is serious business. We should hate sin, and especially hate sin in our own lives. Sin is not something we should play around with. It's not like the fire. I used to play with fire when I was a child. I loved it. Still do. Burnt down a field, burnt down Grandma's garage. Sin is not something we play with any more than fire should have been for me. We hear about the pet sins. We all probably have pet sins that for whatever reason we want to hang on to. Wade, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Everybody okay? I've got this small voice and it doesn't boom out like it should. We can't play around with it. 8 through 10. Depart from me, all you workers of evil, for the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. The Lord has heard my plea. The Lord accepts my prayer. All my enemies shall be ashamed and greatly troubled. They shall turn back and be put to shame in a moment. So here's David changing his tone from the repentant to the thank God for hearing my prayers and answering those prayers. In a way, he's saying, help is on the way. The one who can help has heard my prayer, and he will answer it. In the last part of verse 10, they shall turn back and be put to shame in a minute. It's been a long time since I've heard of somebody say, you ought to be ashamed of that. Well, maybe I haven't done that bad a deal. Maybe that's a good thing. You ought to be ashamed of that. And the world itself is seeing less and less accountability for shame. Chapter 7. Most likely written when David was wandering around trying to get away from King Saul, which took place in 1 Samuel 24. It's talking about a Shiggaion of David. A Shiggaion is a meditation of David. The Shiggaion of David, which he sang to the Lord concerning the words of Cush, a Benjaminite. He said, O Lord my God, in you do I take refuge. Save me from all my pursuers and deliver me. In you do I take refuge. Save me from all my pursuers. Some verses say there's none to deliver, with the exception of God. And David was surely aware of that. He had a lot of friends, thousands of soldiers trying to help him. But he had only one who could deliver him, and that was God. In his overwhelming trouble. And sometimes we have overwhelming trouble. We just cannot fix by ourselves. And that's what prayer's for. I wondered when I thought of this, how do non-believers survive? If you didn't have the avenue of prayer, if you didn't have hope, just forget joy and all this. If you didn't have hope or a promise of help, how would we get by? I have a granddaughter, Heather's oldest daughter. Heather and Jason moved to Maryland, and Harley wasn't there any time at all. And she says, I'm moving back to Norman. Well, there's nobody in Norman to take care of you, Harley. That's fine, I'll take care of myself. So we moved her back to Norman. And her support system was all of a sudden gone. Except for us, of course. She's got a great support system. We see her at least weekly. She was there today. Help her with everything, because that's what we do. But what, spiritually speaking, if you didn't have any support system whatsoever, how would that change how you feel and how you view life and how you get through life even? Any thoughts on that? Keith, you always got a thought. Yes. Goes to sleep with what? Oh, bottle of Jack Daniels. Oh. Okay, if you didn't hear, Keith has somebody he knows that's written a couple of books, very, very smart person, worldly wise, has lost close loved ones, believes in God but doesn't believe that God is relative. Thank you. Relative at all. What does he believe that God is then? Just out there somewhere? He's out there somewhere. That's why he got Jack Daniels. Wow. But at least he believes in a God, and there's so many that don't. And that's why he has a Jack Daniels. Wow. That's so sad. So sad to have God all around us, interacting with us, and still not see. Now, Job could have been the same way. Everything was taken away from Job. But he thought it was his friends thought it was his fault that he'd sinned. And Job said, no, it wasn't my fault. I didn't sin. And he came back around and was blessed for that. I appreciate parents. We've got one parent in this building tonight. If they sell their house, they're going to move to the school that their child is going to go to be their support system. I don't know if I could do that. I'm all settled in my job. I don't know if I could just uproot and go to where that child was going to school. But you know what? That after we heard this lesson, that would be a support system that was needed, because we know what the schools are teaching about God. Okay. Verses 3 through 5. O Lord my God, if I have done this, if there is any wrong in my hands, if I have repaid my friend with evil, or plundered my enemy without cause, let the enemy pursue my soul and overtake it, and let him trample my life to the ground and lay my glory in the dust. This Cush, who's in my preface here, Cush, a Benjaminite, accused David of bringing evil upon someone who he was at peace with, which is a footnote for the word friend, someone he was at peace with. This Cush may have been King Saul, who was the son of Kish, a Benjaminite. And David may have been referring to 1 Samuel 24:10, where David spared Saul's life. If I have repaid my friend with evil, or plundered my enemy without cause, let the enemy pursue my soul and overtake it. David was saying, if I have done wrong, I am willing to accept punishment at the hands of God by allowing Saul to defeat me. But I am innocent. Could have said, may lightning strike me dead if I'm not telling the truth. Even though David sought only good for Saul, and Saul continued to hound him and rewarded evil for good, but isn't that what envy does? Rewards evil for good. But when you have a heart like David, no matter what evil is put upon you, you continue to look for the good in people as he did in Saul. And the respect for Saul being God's anointed is one of the big things there. Verses 6 through 9, arise, O Lord, in your anger. Lift yourself up against the fury of my enemies. Awake for me, you have appointed a judgment. Let the assembly of the peoples be gathered about you. Over it return on high. The Lord judges the peoples. Judge me, O Lord, according to my righteousness and according to the integrity that is in me. O let the evil of the wicked come to an end, and you may establish their righteousness. You who test the minds and hearts, O righteous God. Here he is thinking God's asleep again, over and over and over. Wake up, God. Rise up, God. Lift up thyself against my enemies. He says, you're a judge, so judge my enemies because they're wrong. And I'm wondering if David in the back of his mind were thinking of a verse like Numbers 11:1, and the people complained in the hearing of the Lord about their misfortunes, and when the Lord heard it, his anger was kindled, and the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed some outlying parts of the camp. Like, God, just bring down your hail and brimstones, your fire and brimstones on these people that are pursuing me. When Jesus tried to get a meal in a Samaritan village and they didn't receive him, Luke 9:54, the disciples, when James and John, the disciples, saw it, they said, Lord, do you want us to tell fire to come down from heaven and consume them? Sons of thunder talking. Or 1 Chronicles 21:26, and David built there an altar to the Lord and presented burnt offerings and peace offerings and called on the Lord, and the Lord answered him with fire from heaven upon the altar of burnt offerings. So he's seen God work these miracles with the fire, and I'm just wondering if that's what he's kind of hoping will happen here. Well, I say verse 7. I said in verse 7, and when you intervene, the congregation of your peoples will praise you. That was from another version. I got that, I guess, because it doesn't say. It says, let the assembly of the peoples be gathered about you. Over it return on high. In verse 9, he says this, oh, let the evil of the wicked come to an end, and may you establish the righteous who test the minds and hearts, O righteous God. The NIV says, you are the righteous God who probes minds and hearts. He's saying, God, you are righteous, and only you can see the heart. And only you are qualified to pass judgment. Why can't we pass judgment? Why can't we judge others in their actions? This is the part I wanted to get to. Why can't we pass judgment? Don't pass judgment. Why can't we judge others? Just plain old judge others in their actions. Why can't we do it? When we do it, we do it. But why shouldn't we do it? Are we qualified to do it? Do we see the hearts and the minds of individuals like God does? Of course not. Luke 6:37 says, "Judge not, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven." Now that's what I want to do. I don't want to be judged or condemned. I do want to be forgiven. So that's the way we need to be. Yes, sir, Wade.
You know, we can't judge their hearts and what they think. We can say if their deeds are based opposite of what God said to do. We can base that. We can say that. Say here what they've done is not what God said to do. But we can't say if they, in their heart, they thought they were doing right and didn't realize it. I mean, we don't know that.
We don't know that. We can judge by their fruits. But my point of the lesson is we shouldn't judge at all. Hang in there. We'll get to that. We shouldn't judge at all. Luke 6:36, "But love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the evil. Be merciful, even as your Father is merciful." So don't judge and you won't be judged. Don't condemn and you won't be condemned. Forgive and you'll be forgiven. And be merciful, just like God is merciful. Another one, Romans 2:1, "Therefore you have no excuse, O man, every one of you who judges. For in passing judgment on another, you condemn yourself, because you, the judge, practice the very same things." Or at least other sinful practices. Or do we think we're perfect, we who judge others? There was an off-the-grid show last night. This guy bought, I guess, 6 railroad cars. I guess he had almost no money. It was him and his wife. He'd rented this big forklift to put them all together, and it was quite a show. But anyway, as time went on, he was trying to get this thing built into a house and aggravated more and more and more. And the show showed you just a little bit of it where he's throwing the ladder around because something didn't fit right. Well, you know, he's working day and night trying to get this thing up. And I'm thinking to myself, he shouldn't treat his wife like that. And then I'm thinking to myself, hey, that could be me really easily. And it's so easy to see somebody else and not see yourself. John 8:7, the woman caught in adultery. End of that, he says, and as they continued to ask him, he stood up and said to them, "Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw the stone at her." And of course, as those around her looked at their own lives, they identified their own sins in their life, and they left, starting with the oldest, who are the wisest, to the youngest. It's so easy to see others' sins, but not our own. And our own might be even worse. But they're not as easy to see for us. We all know this one. Matthew 7, starting with verse 1. "Judge not," and in parentheses I put "as to motives." Judge not as to motives, because we don't know the motives, "that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, then you will see more clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye." In verse 12, "So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets." Okay, y'all are the psychologists, or the ministers. I am the person coming to you. My question is, why do I judge those who are different from me? Instantly, almost self-conscious, almost not conscious of it, without even thinking. I was driving into Denison this morning, got there about 9, headed on to south. Pulled into a convenience store to get gas, and at the same time I was pulling in to get gas, there was this man with his pajamas on walking onto the parking lot at the same time. And I'm thinking, ooh, did I come to the wrong place to get gas this morning? And he wasn't even, but it's instantly, the judgment came, just instantly. He walks over and put his dollar in the Coke machine, got his Coke out, walked back toward his house. There was nothing harmful about him. He was just wearing his pajamas and getting him a Coke for the breakfast, I guess. I'm sure he, poor neighborhood. But I instantly judge him. Let me look around here, see who we got. Okay, this will work. I love Golden Corral. Scott, it's just coming, forget it. But I love Golden Corral because I like to eat. Speaking of judgments, what do I see when I walk in Golden Corral? What do I see? I see 500-pound people. I do. And that's all I see when I look around Golden Corral. Why does it matter to me what size a person is? I'm going to eat 2 platefuls, so why am I worried about it? Okay, number 2. When I see bright colored hair on a person, they get the eye roll, like, what in the world are you thinking? Or number 3, when I see somebody with their bodies are all tattooed up. Now, I'm not talking about one little here and there, a little hidden one maybe. I'm talking about that's all you see. Why do I care? It's not my body. You know, I could say, well, Leviticus says you're not supposed to mark your body up, but, well. I think I'm thinking, how are you supposed to get a job looking like that? Maybe not. Or even somebody that wears weird clothes that don't look like my clothes. What I ought to think is, are these things that will affect their soul? Or do they just affect me some way personally? Why is it bothering me? Brian said not too long ago he doesn't like green peas. Well, I don't like green peas either. So does that mean that nobody should like green peas because we don't? Who am I to judge, the Bible says, and I think it's even coming. Why don't we judge others when we have no idea of their situation? So I see somebody sitting on their porch in the middle of the day. What do I think? Because I'm a judging person. I'm thinking, why aren't you out working somewhere? Right? Because I'm a type A personality who's got to work all the time. So I think everybody ought to work all the time. Or here they are, probably on food stamps, and I'm paying for it. And maybe they work at night. Or maybe they're disabled. Or maybe they're sick that day. Why do I care if somebody sits on his porch during the middle of the day? Or maybe they're lazy, you know. Oh, there we are. James 4:12. But who are you to judge your neighbor? Who are you to judge your neighbor? Thank goodness they're not all like me because of my type A personality. Okay, on my business, I take care of the credit card machines for lots of businesses. I have a few liquor stores. Now, what if some of you saw me walking into a liquor store? Oh, I've got to tell somebody. Be judging me, wouldn't you? Without knowing anything about what I was there for. Judging only hurts. It hurts our personal reputation. It hurts our church's reputation. It hurts those who are being judged. It hurts the relationship that might have blossomed if we weren't judgmental. And those relationships are what build the church. Jet's class Sunday, we were talking a little bit about people hiding their problems, hiding the issues that they're dealing with. We've seen the commercial about the person holding the little smiley face up in front of their frowny face, some kind of medical thing. That's something else I've noticed on TV. It's all pills and stuff. That's all you see, commercials. Don't know why. Anyway, true brothers and sisters pretty much know what you're dealing with. Physical brothers and sisters. They know your issues. They know your problems. And for the most part, they want to help you deal with them. Three things here. You have to be looking past the surface. You have to be looking past that mask that they're wearing, what life they're portraying. Number two, you have to earn the right to be brought into their confidence. Good friends know pretty much everything about each other. Number three, once inside that confidence, you have to maintain the confidence if that is their wish. Why aren't people more open with their problems? Why don't we have more responses on Sunday morning? They don't want the whole world knowing their private world, maybe? They don't want to be judged? Maybe they think they can handle it on their own? You know, you used to hear the saying, walk a mile in their shoes before you judge them. And which brings me to, I'm going to finish this, great. Another terrible habit, which is being critical. And that, I think that's what starts being judgmental, is being critical. You see the negative of everything. And I won't tell you who I have told lately that she was critical. But after a while, it kind of grates on you. You don't want to hear just the negative. If I want to hear just the negative, I'd watch the nightly news because that's what you're going to hear. But I don't. It takes effort to see the good side of things. But once you get used to looking for the good side of things, it sets you apart from others in a good way. And it gets you out of the judging business and into the helping business. Who was the son of Barnabas? Son of encouragement or encourager? And now we can be encouragers and empathizers. Thank you.